Plenty to get to on today's Philadelphia 76ers now, but before we begin, make sure you subscribe. This is your home for the best Sixers free agency coverage, and we're having a sub-battle between a couple of arch-rival channels here at Chat Sports in New York Knicks Now, as well as Boston Celtics Today. You see that the Knicks channel is up to 25,000 plus subscribers. Celtics Today up to more than 18,000. Here we are approaching 11,000 subscribers, but those channels have nothing on us. It's all about the bragging rights, and competition brings the best out of everybody. I take this stuff seriously, and you take the Sixers seriously, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So subscribe, and let's catch those aforementioned channels. On today's show, we have updates on James Harden, an update on Fred VanVleet, and the latest on Tobias Harris and the trade drama surrounding him. But let's start here with the major report on James Harden. There is a very real possibility, according to Sam Amick, that James Harden could go back to the Houston Rockets. And I'll say this about Harden, right? If James Harden wants to win an NBA championship, and that's really the only thing that he's missing on what is a lofty and very impressive resume, re-signing with the Philadelphia 76ers gives him the best chance to do that. If he wants to chase numbers and he wants to be around his family members who still have homes in the Houston area where he became a basketball legend, then you could go there. But that's a really young team with a lot of young and intriguing pieces, but they're not going to chase a championship anytime soon. They could use you as an assist man and a guy who could score a lot of points, but if you want to win that NBA championship, the Philadelphia 76ers give you the best opportunity to do that, playing alongside Joel Embiid with Tobias Harris, potentially Tyrese Maxey, and playing for Nick Nurse. Here's the report from Sam Amick here, that only Harden and his inner circle truly know which way he is leaning. But a source close to him reconfirmed that the Rockets remain a serious possibility. And yes, as you may have wondered, that's still the case with Houston deciding to add guard Amen Thompson out of the overtime elite in the NBA draft with the 4th pick, and they added Villanova forward Cam Whitmore after he continued to slip all the way to Houston at number 20. Now, a lot of you have been in the comment section asking for my thoughts on James Harden, and I've relayed plenty of those thoughts right here on the program. Let me say this once again. I'm okay with James Harden returning if the price tag makes sense. And Billy King, the former Sixers general manager, was on 94 WIP and said that James Harden could get a deal 2 to 3 years worth about $35 to $40 million. That's right around the area that he made last year when he took that hometown discount to return to Philly so that the Sixers could use that other money to pursue a player like P.J. Tucker. There are a lot of pros and some cons with James Harden. The pros, Harden led the NBA in assists last year with nearly 11 per night, runs the two-man game in an elite way with Joel Embiid. His split's pretty good last year, 21 points per game, 44% shooting, almost 39% from three. He did by himself basically win game 1 and 4 against the Celtics, but outside of that, he was pretty bad in that series. And while he's struggled to finish around the rim the last 2 years, he's still a pretty good three-level scorer. And I like the evolution of his game, which I've talked about, which is him becoming that really good visionary in distributing the basketball. But operating at about that elbow and mid-range point is something that he's added, and I think it's added a different dimension to his scoring output. The cons for Harden, 33 years old. How does he age as a player who's never really put that much work in to improving his conditioning as well as his body? Because he's never been in peak shape, although he has been durable throughout his career. I give him credit for that. Way too inconsistent, no championship pedigree, as he always comes up short in some of the biggest of moments. And my biggest problem with that last point, he lacks accountability. When he doesn't show up, it's always blaming somebody else. He won't just say, you know what? I played terrible basketball today, and that's why we didn't win the basketball game. As for more reporting on the James Harden front, let's get to the latest from Chris Haynes as well as Mark Stein. Chris Haynes up first. This is a hard one for me to gauge right now because it keeps changing. Right now, if you're asking me, I'm saying it sounds like he's staying in Philly. It sounds like that's what's going to happen. Philly is what I'm hearing right now. I'm not real confident in that because I think things could change, but if you're asking me right now, that's what I would say. This is what I'll say about this matter. If the Sixers don't re-sign James Harden, he spurns them and he signs with a different team in free agency, like let's say the Houston Rockets, this offseason becomes very fascinating for Philadelphia. Joel Embiid is 29 years old. He's coming off an MVP season. They still have NBA championship aspirations since 2020. They've been top 3 in the NBA in wins. But if you lose 20 points per game and about 10 assists per night to go alongside 7 rebounds, how are you replacing that production in a free agency pool that's pretty thin? And do you expect Tyrese Maxey to take yet another leap going into year 4? That's a possibility. Or signing a guy like Fred VanVleet could also be in the cards for Philly if James Harden does not return to the city of brotherly love. Mark Stein on the Harden front. As we talked about on Monday's show, he thinks there's a very real possibility that Harden goes back with Philly, and he's responding to Chris Haynes here as they were having a conversation about this during their podcast. Yeah, because it sounds like the max is not on the table in either case. Thank God. The latest thing I heard was that Harden came out of his meeting with Nick Nurse, the new Philly coach, intrigued by what Nick Nurse had to say. I think if you polled 30 front offices, more than many would say that they expect James Harden to stay in Philly. But yeah, could be a long week, could be some changes there. More and more as the official start of free agency draws near on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, league sources say they see Toronto's Fred VanVleet and Memphis's Dillon Brooks at the top of the Rockets' wish list, widely thought to be headlined by former Rockets all-star James Harden, amid a steady drumbeat of chatter over the past week or two that the 76ers have gained momentum in their quest to convince Harden at 33 to bypass a return to his adopted home of Houston and stick with the contending Sixers on a 2 or 3 year deal. There have been equally compelling signals that the Rockets will be strong contenders to sign both Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. And it's pretty interesting, the tie between Harden and the Rockets, VanVleet and the Rockets, Harden and the Sixers, VanVleet and the Sixers. Because if Harden leaves the Sixers, I find it hard to believe that they'll be just okay with Tyrese Maxey stepping into that role. Although I do think he has the potential to be Joel Embiid's Jamal Murray. I think because of the connection between VanVleet and Nick Nurse, that is a good backup plan for Philadelphia. So what would your one-word reaction be if Harden does come back to the Sixers to run it back once again? Sound off and let me know. And if you want to interact with me on Twitter and Instagram, feel free to find me there at Chase_Senior. It's the same handle on both platforms. For those of you who don't know me, I've said this a couple of times here on the show. Grew up in Westchester, lifelong Sixers fan, went to Temple University. Me like you, I've been through all of the heartbreaks that the Sixers have endured and the Sixers have handed us all throughout my lifetime. So let's talk about it on social media. It could be our therapy session together. We also have a great deal that we want to tell you about thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Michael Rubin might not be a minority owner of the Sixers any longer. He's given us this great deal, though, to tell Sixers fans about. This T-shirt shorts combo was $60. It's now $33. Perfect purchase for the summertime. Chatsports.com/76ers combo. Get hooked up today. Beat Writer Wars. Let's talk about that to round out the show. Kyle Neubeck calling out Keith Pompey's reporting. You have Kyle Neubeck, a Philly Voice, Keith Pompey, Philadelphia Inquirer, and Kyle Neubeck isn't having anything that Keith Pompey said in his recent report that pertained to the Tobias Harris trade rumors. Here's Neubeck here. The first red flag in Pompey's reporting that should have been thought of before publishing is the suggestion that Phoenix was actively looking to trade for Harris specifically, but when it came to finding a third team, their position was basically figure it out yourselves to the Sixers. Not sure the logic holds up on that one, so let's get into the main problem of this reporting from Pompey. That Harris, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley trade, it is straight up illegal, and it would be illegal under either version of the collective bargaining agreement, new or old. In any case, it is not my understanding that the Sixers go around hoping to make and propose illegal trades all of the time, but your mileage may vary. This is also not the first time Pompey, or a source of Pompey's, I suppose, has played up the Sixers' bargaining position in some of these trade talks. There has been a lot of chatter as people have done their deep dive investigative research on Twitter that Keith Pompey's source is the father of Tobias Harris, and that's how he's getting this information. And that would make some sense from the standpoint of Toby's dad, who, by the way, I think is his agent, trying to up and increase the value of his client, a la his son, in Tobias Harris. Beat writer wars at this point of the offseason, it's always very, very, very entertaining. Surprisingly, there aren't a lot of YouTube channel wars out there. Although when I was launching this channel, a couple of people took issue with me talking about the biggest subject in the NBA, and that was all the Ben Simmons trade rumors. I think one guy at one point was like, all this guy talks about is Ben Simmons, and his channel's taken off because of it. Follow the views, right? Follow the talking points. That's my suggestion, and that's my advice to people starting a YouTube channel. You got to get the numbers. You got to get the views right while spitting facts, spitting fire, and building up the program here. It's all good at the end of the day. Love the competition. What is your perfect plan for the Sixers this offseason? What is it? You let me know. As for what transpires in free agency, I'll be talking about it right here on 76ers Now and on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/chatsports. I'll be helping to lead our coverage over there with more than 340,000 subscribers tuning in. It'll be the most watched free agency coverage right here on YouTube, going live well before ESPN goes live or The Athletic or anything like that. So come kick it with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Super Chat giveaways as well.